So this week I'm covering the death of Savita Halappanavar. Also, just before I do this, I apologise if I butcher anybody's names. I'm very, very sorry. That's not my intention. I've tried my best to Google to
It's
find...
her white privilege.
It's my white privilege. To Google how to pronounce their names properly. So I'm going to try my absolute best, but I apologise if I do anything wrong. So I got my references from the Irish Times, irishcentral.com. There's a podcast...
Me.
Sarah Jane. There's a podcast on The Guardian called... by an amazing journalist called Danielle Stevens, and it's called Ireland's Shame. The death of Savita Halappanavar. Then I got another information from the journal.ie, Wikipedia, and I'm going to link all the articles because they're actually excellently written and really important in our Instagram and on the page. So, Savita Andanappa Yalagi, I hope I'm right, was born in Bangalkot, a city in the Indian state of Karnataka, on the 29th of September 1981. Savita was the youngest child of 3. She had 2 brothers, Santosh and Sanjeev, and her father, Andanappa Yalagi, and mother, Akmadevi, I think that's correct.
That's a beautiful name.
Beautiful name. Said from the day she was born, Savita was adored. Savita's mum said her daughter was always funny, always laughing, and she was, quote, always the little ruler. We knew she would be a ruler of the house the moment she was born. So Savita's first love as a child was dancing. Akmadevi described 4-year-old Savita learning to dance from watching television. She would ask her mother to sit down so she could show her the new steps she was working on. Always she was practicing and dressing up. She was a good dancer from when she was a very young age, her mother said. So in 1990, at the age of 9, Savita and her family moved to Srinagar. It was here that Savita's father, Andanappa, began to build a single-storey villa. During the build, Savita would arrive home from school every day and tell her father the colours she wanted in the house. She would tell me what to do and where to put things. She would say, this is my house. Even when Praveen came to see her, she would tell him, you know, Praveen, this is my house. It was always her house. It's funny. Savita attended secondary school in Vanita Vidyalala. I think that's right. I'm so sorry if it's not. A highly prestigious school where parents said she was first in every class she attended. Savita was intelligent, driven and determined. She knew exactly what career to pursue. And in 2000, at the age of 18, Savita began studying at KLE University to become a dentist. So a principal professor at KLE remembered Savita as a friendly person who was exceptionally kind with her time for other students. And this is like a thing in her life. Anybody that talks about her was like, she just gave so much time to other people. So Savita also covered her love of dance in university, where she joined the college's dramatic and dance societies. She graduated in 2004 and began working with a dentist in the city of Belgaum until 2007.
Do you know how much it costs to get your teeth done in India?
No idea. Dirt cheap.
Like €13 for a root canal. For fuck's sake. There's a couple of people I work with that are from India. Jesus. And they go home to get their teeth done. And Harjeev was telling me, he was like...
Tell him to bring me!
Yeah, he was like €13 to get like a root canal. It
goes to show you how much we're being rode over here, like.
Well, yeah.
We are being rode over here.
I know, but like €13 because like the cost of living is...
I know, it's... Yeah. According to Savita's father, she would probably have stayed in Belgaum had she not met her future husband, Praveen Halappanavar, on the matrimonial website shadi.com. I didn't know there was a matrimonial website, so you can go and like look for a partner.
I want to get married.
Yeah. Savita was besotted with Praveen, and they would spend hours on Skype with each other every day. Praveen every day, said Savita's father. So Praveen's family came from a town close to Belgaum, and Savita's family actually knew them. He said that Praveen, an engineer, was a good person and he was happy to give his blessing for them to be married. However, Praveen was living in County Galway in Ireland, and the distance was incredibly difficult for Savita.
What religion were they?
She's Hindu.
Oh, okay.
So
they would have had a massive wedding.
Oh yeah, it was like 500 people at it.
Wow.
Like the pictures are unreal.
That's amazing.
Fucking stunning. Praveen said
if any Hindus or Sikhs follow us, can I come to your wedding?
Praveen said he was, quote, kind of amazed that someone like Savita was interested in me. She took my breath away.
Aww.
Savita and Praveen decided to get married in April 2008 in a banqueting hall in Belgaum that Andanappa booked. There were over 500 guests, and Savita, true to form, decided on every detail. The day of the ceremony, the temperatures hit 40 degrees Celsius. And Praveen remembers Savita being incredibly worried her makeup would run.
Aww.
Savita and Praveen's wedding photos show a couple very much in love. Savita smiles widely in every picture, and Praveen watches her adoringly. She was so happy that day, her father said. Savita's parents were happy for her to go to Ireland and fully supported her. However, they always hoped she and Praveen would return to India someday. Her dad said, quote, "I said, let her go. Let her try for a year. If she didn't like Ireland," Praveen said, "they would come back. We encouraged her to go. We always supported her to be who she wanted to be." Savita moved to Galway in 2008 as soon as her visa was approved. Praveen's friends noticed an immediate change in the once quiet, shy, unsocial Praveen. Savita began socialising almost immediately, making friends and attending parties and events, and Praveen found himself opened up to an entirely new life. Praveen and Savita even moved to a bigger house so they could entertain more people.
Aww.
So she made him...
She changed his life.
She changed him. He was just kind of... His friends said he wouldn't go out, he wouldn't talk to anybody, he was really quiet and shy, and he met her and she just they'd said she'd walk into a room and everybody just wanted to talk to her. One of those people. Praveen said of his wife...
Sounds like me.
She does.
Oh my God.
Praveen said of his wife, "I soon came to understand what her family told me about her. Savita was not only the leader of our house, but her circle of friends. No one ever questioned this. It was not a matter of ego either. She just led and people naturally accepted that. She always said exactly what she was thinking and people liked that about her." Savita and Praveen began taking part in dancing competitions around Ireland.
Wow.
Yeah, Savita also became involved in community groups helping children to learn to dance. Children loved her and she choreographed their dance routines for cultural events, said her friend Devi. So she would and she actually had at one of the St. Patrick's Day parades.
Yeah.
She had traditional Indian dancers out of the kids.
Aww.
Which I thought was just so lovely. Savita was nicknamed the girl with the diamond smile, not only because she had a diamond on one tooth, and this isn't just in parentheses, when children would ask her how they could get a diamond in her tooth, she would tell them one day they would have to go to India to get one. But because she was so bright and her personality shone through her smile.
Did she have a diamond in her tooth?
Yeah, this tooth there. Savita decided to practice dentistry in Ireland and she applied to sit the Irish Dental Council exams. Also, how intelligent is this fucking woman? Jesus Christ. Savita and Praveen spent
I'd be like, I've already got 1 degree.
Have enough. Savita and Praveen spent a week in Dublin as Savita completed her exams. Declan O'Flynn, the council's registrar, remembered Savita clearly. He said she was a highly likeable, kind and helpful person, especially to the other students in her class. He said, quote, "I met her husband too, I seem to remember, and they were a really nice couple." In July 2012, Savita passed her exams and was granted a licence to practice dentistry in Ireland. That same month, Savita did a pregnancy test at home and she and Praveen were delighted to discover that Savita was pregnant with her first child.
Aww.
Savita was referred to Dr. Catherine Astbury, and in October, Dr. Astbury performed an ultrasound on Savita. She was 17 weeks pregnant and both her and her baby were in perfect health. Praveen said that Dr. Astbury gave us the date the baby was due as March 30th, 2013. Savita shed tears of happiness when she saw the baby on the monitor. So Savita decided not to start practicing dentistry until after the baby was born.
Okay.
Instead, her parents came to visit her while Praveen continued to work. Savita brought her parents to various sites around Galway. Each day they would go to fruit and vegetable markets in which Savita loved. It was only when Savita asked them to help her view houses that she and Praveen were hoping to buy before the birth of their baby that Andanappa, her father, realised that Savita had no intention of returning to India for a long time. Although disappointed, Savita's parents could not be upset because their daughter was so happy. So they were kind of hoping she'd have the baby and maybe come back to India. But no, she wanted to live in Ireland. On Saturday, October 20th, Savita and her mother decided to throw a baby shower. The shower was lavish and beautiful and Savita's mother made all of her favourite foods for her. Savita's friends said the shower was wonderful and Savita was elated at the end of the evening. That night, Savita could not sleep. She'd been experiencing lower back pain for a number of weeks, a pain she had told her doctor about, who at the time had discharged her without any diagnosis. The pain was now worse than usual, and at 9 p.m, Praveen phoned the maternity ward at the University Hospital Galway. He said, quote, "I spoke to a midwife and explained what was happening. She said to come on in, so we told her parents we were going to the hospital." Upon arriving at the hospital, Savita told the doctors that she had had a sensation almost as if there was, quote, "something coming down." That's what she just kept saying to them. "I feel like something's coming down." Upon further examination, it was found that the gestational sac was protruding from her body. Savita was admitted to the hospital and doctors told her and Praveen the cervix was fully dilated, amniotic fluid was leaking. Unfortunately, the baby wouldn't survive.
Yeah.
Just after midnight on October 22nd, Savita's waters broke, but she did not expel the fetus. The doctor, according to Praveen, told them that it would be over in a few hours, but the fetal heartbeat continued for 3 more days. This is pretty horrific, just FYI. Praveen and Savita were devastated. Praveen said that Savita was, quote, "really in agony. She was very angry, but she accepted she was losing the baby. When the consultant came on the ward rounds on Monday morning, Savita asked if they could not save the baby, could they induce to end the pregnancy. The consultant said, quote, "As long as there is a fetal heartbeat, we can't do anything." The consultant recalled saying, so after this, "Under Irish law, if there's no evidence of risk to the life of the mother, our hands are tied so long as there's a fetal heartbeat." So this is what they told Praveen and Savita. So on Tuesday morning, as Savita lay in hospital bed in agony and losing her first child, she requested a termination of the pregnancy again. She was once told, Praveen said this, the consultant said it was the law, that this is a Catholic country. Savita, a Hindu, said, "I am neither Irish nor Catholic," but they said there was nothing they could do. So she was in agony. That evening, Savita developed shakes and began vomiting. So this is from the journal.ie. At 4:15 a.m. on Wednesday, 24th of October, a midwife noted that Savita was feeling cold and shivery. The radiator in the room did not work and she was documented as being stone cold, like she was freezing. Both she and her husband asked for extra blankets, and the midwife noticed Savita's teeth were chattering. She was given paracetamol to manage her increased temperature. By 7 a.m, Savita was suffering from nausea and vomiting. Just over an hour later, the consultant's team diagnosed chorioamniosis, an inflammation of the fetal membranes due to infection. Their focus was to find the source of the infection and to give time for the prescribed medications to work. Savita went to the toilet, where she collapsed on the ground, and when she was too weak to ask for a termination again, Praveen asked for her to please help his wife. The doctors in hospital once again told him no, as Irish law, under the influence of the Catholic Church, at the time forbade abortion if a fetal heartbeat was still present. A few hours after Praveen's final request to terminate, I don't get upset. Why am I getting upset?
Because it's really sad. Because she's dying. And she's in a hospital and her husband is watching her die.
Yeah. Sorry.
And the people who are supposed to save her aren't helping her.
Yeah. A few hours after Praveen's final request to terminate the pregnancy and help his incredibly sick wife, the fetal heartbeat stopped. It was only then that Savita was taken into an operating room and the contents of her womb were removed. That's how they described it as well. Praveen said that when she awoke from the operation, but she could speak, but she was incredibly ill. Praveen sat with her and held her hand, and this would be the last time he would ever speak to his wife. I just don't understand, it's poor people. Praveen went back to their home to shower and eat because he'd been in the hospital every day, all hours, and they were like, you have to go eat, you have to wash it, you have to feel like a normal person. So he went, and I think at 10 p.m, and then at 11 p.m. that night he received a call from the hospital. The doctor told them they were moving Savita to intensive care. Savita's heart and pulse were low and her temperature was high. She was sedated and critical, but stable, the doctors told Praveen. Savita remained stable on Friday, but on Saturday night at 7 p.m, the doctors told Praveen that Savita's liver, kidneys and heart weren't functioning. That night, Praveen said, "We lost her." Savita had developed sepsis and then suffered a cardiac arrest.
Jesus Christ.
Savita Halappanavar died on October 28, 2012, 31 years of age. So Savita's death not only devastated and shocked Savita's family and husband, but it caused outrage and devastation to the people of Ireland and around the world. You absolutely remember this, right?
Yeah.
It's insane. The circumstances of Savita's death caused an outcry of anger amongst Irish women as they watched the abysmal and cruel treatment of yet another woman in this country. Savita's death and the outrage that followed would eventually play a pivotal role in the historic abortion referendum which took place in Ireland in 2018. As the weeks went on, more information was released about Savita's death and what she had gone through. A fortnight after Savita's death, Kitty Holland in the Irish Times wrote about Savita's death with the headline, "Woman denied determination dies in hospital." So this was where it all kicked off.
Yeah.
And they were kind of trying to hide it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And then Praveen's friends went to the media. Yeah. So they went to Kitty and they were like, this is after happening, and they're trying to hide what's after happening.
Who was trying to hide it? The HSE?
The fucking HSE in the hospitals. Because... And I was listening to a podcast today, and that's why I'm upset. They were talking to a doctor that worked in the hospital at the time, but he wasn't around her. And he said that there are girls, nurses and midwives in the hospital that still cry about it to this day. He's like, if you mention her name, they just break down into tears. And it's not because they got in trouble. It's because they were watching this woman die and they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And that's what their job is. They're like, I'm here to protect and make you better and look after you when you're sick. And they were like, we couldn't.
But it's also...
We were given a woman paracetamol when she had sepsis.
We're given a woman paracetamol when she had sepsis.
Yeah.
But also, when you are a woman...
Yeah. That's it, yeah.
Like, you are a woman.
You are a woman, so you understand that.
And you understand, like, and also, if you're a woman that's ever had a baby.
A mother, especially, yeah.
Like, I had to have, and I'm not in any way putting myself in the same
No,
position as
of course not, but you can
But I was
empathise.
close I had to have that surgery because they were like, you're becoming sepsis.
Yeah.
Your blood has sepsis in it.
And it's like one of the scariest things you can hear.
Yeah, and they were like, all we can give you, because this is, again, I had Lily long before the ability to have an abortion in this country was there. They were like, all I was on for the entire time that I had, so I had like a pilonidal sinus essentially, and I had a cyst in my lower back.
Oh, that thing.
And I was in, and I had this when I was 16, so I knew how much agony I was going to be in.
Yeah.
But when I was 16, I was given morphine after I had my surgery.
Fuck. And this, they like gave you, they weren't trying anything, were you?
I had paracetamol because I was pregnant. And I was really early pregnant. And me and Graham had been trying so hard to get pregnant, and we wasn't like just as straightforward, like we got pregnant. Of course,
yeah.
And so for this woman, my baby was safe.
Yeah.
So my baby, I was like, right, I'm going to have the and I couldn't. They were like, if we put you asleep, there's like a 60% chance you're going to lose the baby because we can't maintain oxygen.
Yeah.
So they were like, we're going to have to keep you awake. And it was horrific. I couldn't have any anaesthetic.
I don't know how you did that, dude. I don't know how you did it.
So for this woman to know that, like, okay, my baby is dying and my baby is going to die.
There's nothing I can do
There's nothing I can do. But, like...
Please save me.
Please save me. But actually, what you're telling me is we have to wait for my baby to die slowly inside of me. Yeah. And then... you might be able to help me. But at that point, like, if she's chattering and her teeth are chattering, like, as soon as...
She's going into shock.
Her going into shock. And then to be like, the radiator isn't working in the room.
Like, insane.
Like...
And like that,
would you not take her blood to see if there's something wrong?
Wait, when I get through this, you'll see how much shit that was done wrong. Like, it's insane. So, in the article by Kitty Holland, Praveen outlined how he and Savita had asked for a termination multiple times, but were informed that Ireland was a Catholic country and they could not carry out a termination. Savita's death came at a time just after the first March for Choice had taken place in Ireland. 4 weeks previously, almost 3,000 people had attended a pro-choice march calling for Ireland's abortion laws to be changed. So the outcome of the X case in 1992 still had not been legalised.
No.
Which left women still at risk, and Savita was a perfect and unfortunate example of this. So just have this in parentheses for people who don't live in Ireland. Probably don't know what the X case is, obviously. So, under the 1992 X case ruling, the Supreme Court found that abortion is permitted in Ireland under the Constitution in circumstances where there is a real and a substantial threat to the life of the mother. However, no government has yet introduced legislation to enact this ruling. Now, obviously, they don't need to do it now because we have legal abortion. But from 1992 up until this date...
No, they didn't, because you know what happens when they go after this, and up until that point where they go after it, is the government doesn't stay in power. Yeah. And rather than protect the people that governments are there to do, they were like, you know what, I'd really like my
I'd like my cushy, I'd like my cushy money, so I'm just not getting involved in this.
Yeah, so I'm just not going to get involved in this.
So, because there had been no legalisation introduced to enact the ruling, it created a grey area. So I'm just going to talk about the X case a little bit because it kind of clips. So the X case is something I'm going to encourage everybody to read about if you can. So basically, this is what happened. A 14-year-old girl was being raped by a man who was known to her family, and she became pregnant. She's 14. He was like 35. Her family went to the Gardaí and then decided to bring their daughter to England to have an abortion. So anybody that's not Irish, we couldn't have abortion up until 2018.
Yeah.
Everybody had to go off on a little boat ride to England with their shame.
Or Holland,
yeah. So, before going to England, the family asked the Gardaí if it would still be possible to confirm the paternity of the father using cells from the aborted fetus. The Gardaí then went to the DPP instead with this, and there was an injunction put out to stop the 14-year-old child and rape victim having an abortion.
Yeah.
The child told her parents that she was suicidal and she could not have this child. She threatened to throw herself down the flight of stairs. The case caused public outcry and eventually she was granted the abortion. However, she miscarried before she could have it. So that's where we were as a country in 2012. Nightmare. So candlelight vigils were held for Savita across Ireland and across the world. Her image was painted on walls of people writing messages of apology and understanding to her and her family. Many women who had experienced what Savita had, and many who had to travel to England to receive abortions legally due to Ireland's archaic and dangerous laws. A march was held in Dublin in Savita's honour, and many of the groups who organised this would then go on to form the Coalition for the Repealing of the Eighth Amendment in Ireland, which would eventually lead to free and legal abortion in this country for all women. Abortion rights activists highlighted that a lack of transparency in clarifying the limited circumstances in which abortion is legal in Ireland contributed to Halappanavar's death, which is absolutely true. Anti-abortion groups accused abortion campaigners of exploiting Halappanavar's death to further their agenda. In response to this, Kate Smurthwaite, so she's a political activist and a comedian, she wrote this piece in the Huffington Post, and she said, "Yes, Savita Halappanavar's death is a political issue. If I am ever a victim of an unjust legal discrepancy that infringes my human rights and leads to my untimely and unnecessary agonising death, I want every man, woman and child on the streets immediately demanding that it never ever be allowed to happen again." So as I mentioned earlier, the outcry was international. Protests were held outside embassies in London, Berlin and Brussels. In an editorial in the Times of India in November 2012, the writer said, quote, "There appears to be a tendency to view this issue in terms of India versus Ireland or Catholic faith against other religions. To fall prey to such tendencies will be a serious mistake and a great disservice to the memory of Savita. Adding a nationalist or communal tone to the debate detracts from the merit of argument rather than enhancing it," which is incredibly true as well. Amnesty International released a statement in December, quote, "Halappanavar's death illustrates the gap in Irish law. They asked the Government of Ireland to change the law on abortion in line with the international human rights law. The executive director of Amnesty International in Ireland, Colin O'Gorman, said, "Successive Irish governments have failed in their duty to provide necessary clarity on how this right is protected and vindicated, leaving women in Ireland in a very vulnerable position." You know what sucks? Is that she had to die.
Yeah.
It's like that gay gentleman who died for us to have.
Yeah. It's like...
It's fucking shit. It's just shit. Like, it's shit. So Irish politicians were also asked to speak on Savita's death, with Taoiseach at the time, Enda Kenny, stating, "I don't think we should say anything about this until we are in possession of all the facts."
Yeah, because he wanted to sit on a fucking fence.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later he got caught. He came out and said,
that. Fianna Fáil leader Micheál Martin called Savita's death harrowing and tragic. He called for an independent inquiry with experts from outside the country to establish the full circumstances. Martin also said he did not believe legislating for the X case would have stopped the death of Savita Halappanavar. How would it fucking not have stopped it? Because they would have been like, that baby is dead, you could die, we're terminating the pregnancy because we can, because of this legislation.
Yeah.
So the inquest into Savita Halappanavar's death...
Who said that?
Micheál Martin. Yeah, Fianna Fáil leader. So the inquest
our current Taoiseach.
Yes, into Savita Halappanavar's death was held between April 15th and April 19th, 2013 at Galway's Coroner's Court. Praveen told journalists that this would be his chance to finally find the truth as to why his wife had died. Midwives, doctors, specialists, consultants and friends of the victim all gave evidence as witnesses. Another 70 statements were taken from hospital staff and other sources. Praveen attended all but one day of the proceedings. His solicitor told reporters that he was finding it incredibly difficult to be there, which I get, listening to people like. So the primary role of the inquest was to determine the facts of her death. Anne-Marie Burke, the manager at St Monica's ward in Galway University Hospital, told the inquest that she did tell Praveen and Savita that the reason Savita could not have an abortion was because Ireland was a Catholic country. Burke said she did in fact state, "We don't do that here, dear. It's a Catholic thing." But told the
same thing.
She told the court then that she did not mean it in a hurtful way. She said the phrase had, quote, "come out the wrong way, and I'm sorry that I said it. It does sound very bad now, but at the time I did not mean it in that way. I was trying to be as broad and explanatory as I could. It was nothing to do with medical care at all." Praveen said he was surprised but pleased with Burke's statement and thanked her for her honesty, stating, "I would like her to thank for being very honest. It came out of the blue. It is very difficult. The way she was treated was horrendous, so it's just some comfort that the truth is coming out." He is such a fucking good person. So Dr. Catherine Asprey, who was the lady who did her first scan, told the court that Savita asked for a termination when she was told she was miscarrying. So she was like, "I want this baby terminated." She stated that, quote, "It is illegal to have an abortion in Ireland unless there is a risk to the mother's life, something which had not been established yet," according to Asprey. The consultant also outlined that she was dealing in probabilities.
What?
She was like, it could happen. It might happen. I don't know. Probably could, but we're just going to let her sit here for 3 days in agony, giving her paracetamol because we won't give her anything else because there's still a fetal heartbeat from a baby that's going to die anyway. Fucking shamed of themselves. They should have all been stricken. They shouldn't be working in the medical industry. Should be gone. So during the inquest, a number of witnesses, including Savita's consultant, said if it was legally permissible to offer the patient a termination earlier than when it was given, she would probably be alive today. So if they were like, yeah,
there's no probability about it.
Working in probability, she'd be alive.
She would be alive.
She should have done it the first time she fucking asked.
They should have done
her baby was dead. You told her baby was dead.
They should have done it the minute her amniotic fluid started to leak.
She was like, for that poor girl to be like, not only was she dealing with the fact that her baby was dead inside her, she knew something was wrong. She was so sick. And for them to be like, well, she might get sick. We don't know. You don't know. You're a doctor. Why are you a doctor? Oh. So the coroner's inquest found that Savita died of medical misadventure. Now, medical misadventure does not necessarily mean that anybody is going to be sued or go to court or that there's only going to be any legal proceedings. It just means medical misadventure. So this was the Galway Coroner's Court findings. In November 2012, the HSE carried out its own inquiry. Now I'm going to butcher this man's name. Headed by Professor Sir Sabaratnam Arukal Umaran. I'm so sorry. The professor is the head of obstetrics and gynecology at St. George's Hospital Medical School and is the president-elect of the International Federation of Gynecology.
And he's a man.
He's a man. In 108 pages, this document was 108 pages report. They criticised Savita's team for not diagnosing the sepsis soon enough and for not using already standard screening tools for detecting and managing maternal sepsis.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand.
For poor keeping of medical records, poor communication at shift changes, and failure to notify staff with needed expertise. They criticised the administration of the hospital for the poor system in which its team failed. So they were like, they fucked up. This is not,
medical misadventure.
They fucked up. They made recommendations about training and policies for the hospital locally, along with a number of national recommendations, including creation of a laboratory system to coordinate a national response to emerging microbial threats. The HCC also recommended changes to the legal situation and training of doctors about the law. So there were 6 recommendations made. Prompt introduction of a maternity early warning scoring systems charts for patients and pregnancy complications in gynecology wards. Introduction of mandatory induction and education on early recognition, monitoring, management of infection and sepsis. Development and implementation of national guidelines relating to infection and pregnancy. There was 2 sub-recommendations. So compliance with guidelines in the management of early second trimester inevitable miscarriage. And clear statement of the legal context in which clinical professional judgment can be exercised in the best medical welfare interests of the patients. This did not exist. These standard things did not exist before this. So they were like, hey, maybe you should think about the patient's well-being before what you think is legally correct. Well, it didn't exist. Finally, 5, the panel recommended improvement communication practices between all relevant staff and improvement in handover of acutely ill patients. So they weren't doing this. Compliance of guidelines on the consultant's responsibilities, according to the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. Responsibility of the consultant on call. These indicate the need to involve senior medical staff due to difficulty coping with caseloads or to consult on suspected serious cases. So basically, they didn't do anything they were meant to do.
But you know what, Emma?
I know nurses are completely...
No, that's not what I'm about to say.
I'm not talking shit about nurses. Nurses are wonderful people.
I'm not going to talk shit about anybody, but here... I was in hospital for 6 days bleeding.
Yeah.
Before anybody decided to fucking see me.
Hey, you okay? You're right there bleeding.
I went in for I rang the one. I had bled throughout my pregnancy. On 2 occasions, I ended up in A&E in the Rotunda.
Yeah.
On the last occasion, where I bled and was bleeding, and I was with you.
Yeah.
I rang the hospital, and I said, "Hey, I'm in the very late stages of my pregnancy. I am bleeding vaginally.
Yep.
What should I do?" And I had my final appointment the next day.
I remember that, yeah.
and I was told to stay at home and to come in for my final appointment. And I was like, okay, like, I've never had a baby before, I've never been pregnant before.
I'm going to listen to what the medical professionals
No one can tell me why I'm bleeding, but okay. So, it was like, cool. Next day, me and Graham got up. I got up and was like, I'm going to cinema after I go to this appointment with Graham.
Yeah.
We went into the hospital. So when you go in for your appointment, I sat down, saw that, so you see like a pre-nurse who asks you, like, are you okay? Like, is there anything I need to know before you go see the doctor?
Yeah.
And if there's nothing I need to know, then you don't really need to see the doctor. But because it's your last appointment, you do. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, you have to urinate into a cup. You have to get your bloods taken. I was like, I had gestational diabetes, so I had to get my bloods taken every time I went to the hospital. I had to go to the hospital once a week. And I sat down, I gave her like the urine, and there was blood in it. And she was like, and I was like, yeah, I'm bleeding.
Oh, God.
And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, how long have you been bleeding? And I was like, for like 2 days. And she was like, what? Why? I was like, I rang here yesterday and the nurse told me not to come.
Stay at home.
I was like, if you look at my chart, I've bled historically through this pregnancy. And she was like, that's not okay. We need you
and that goes to show you. They were like, you guys need to tell each nurse.
But I gave birth in 2015. This happened in 2012.
3 years later, this still happened.
Right.
I often think, how many lucky cases are there?
Yeah.
Where they were like, don't do that, and then the person just didn't do it, and fortunately, for the grace of God, that
everything
child
was
was okay.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, and she was like, hang on. And on the other side of the rotunda where you go to see the doctors, there is one doctor and he specialises in like multiple births. So there's very few people that see him because obviously it's not common, but he is less busy.
Oh, okay.
And all of the other doctors on the other side of the rotunda ward, they all see standard patients, like, and that's their job. And so in and out, right? Yeah. And so they see like all the people that are coming like for their regular checkups for their baby. And she was like, can you just stay here? And I was like, yeah, grand. And she walked over to the other side of the other side of the room. When I say the hospital, it's like a massive big ward. Walked into that room, came back out with a wheelchair and put me in a wheelchair and wheeled me across. And Graham was like,
were you guys like, what the
Graham was like, what? And I was like, I don't fucking know. Right? Wheeled me into that man. I got put ahead of everybody.
Right. He
was as rude, and I won't get into like what happened there, but I literally got up on the bed. He did an inspection, shall we say, and then without telling me, gave me a full sweep. So he like literally...
Well, you just like, he just right up.
Like, and so like a full sweep is like 5 fingers in and a full turn. And the reason you get a sweep is to get your waters to break. That's what they're doing. He never told me anything he was doing. And I literally... Graham was like standing at the end of the bed with my coat and his coat over his arm. That's how like...
quick
fast this whole thing moved. And... his office door was still open and there was people sitting in the waiting room.
Sarah.
And all he did was like pull the curtain across and gave me a full sweep. And I went, oh, like it was very painful. It hurt. And he said nothing. He took his hand out of my vagina. It was covered in blood. Graham looked at me and I was like, he took the glove off, put it in the bin, walked out of the room and picked up the phone. And within like 3 minutes, there was a nurse back in the room with a wheelchair and was like, Sarah, can you sit in this? She wheeled me out and then was like, we're going to admit you now. And they wheeled me straight up to admissions and no one told me what was going on. That doctor never spoke to me. He never said a single thing to me. They wheeled me up to admissions.
I don't understand how scared people are.
And I got pushed into the admissions office in my wheelchair and I was like, I can walk. And she was like, no, you can't.
Oh, dude.
I was admitted. Graham we had nothing. As I said, we were going to the cinema.
You were going to the cinema, yeah.
We were put up in a ward upstairs, which was a pre-labour ward. So people were like about to go into labour kind of thing. And I was wheeled into one room, left there. A nurse walked up to me about 15 minutes later. I was sitting in the middle of this room with Graham standing beside me. And she was like, why are you here? And I was like, oh my God. I was like, that a nurse just wheeled me in here. I'm being admitted and I'm bleeding. And she was like, there's no room in here. And then she wheeled me out and put me into another ward. And another nurse was like, sorry.
Why are you here?
And I was like, I'm bleeding, I am being admitted. And she put me in a room, put me in a bed in the corner of the room. And I stayed there for 2 days, and a nurse came and checked my pad. So I was given a pad.
Of course, yeah.
I had to like take my pad off, and a nurse would check it. I had to wee into like a jug, and I was told when I was admitted, a doctor's going to come and speak to you, and then tomorrow morning you're going to be induced. And I was like, right, okay. And I was like, is my baby okay?
What is happening?
And they were like, we don't know, is what I was told. And I was like, right. So they were like, we're going to induce you. I sat in that room for 2 days and not a single doctor came to see me. I sat in the corner of the room, bleeding. I never got brought down to be induced. And on the second day so like on the third day technically, I was like, a nurse was checking, and I was like, no one has spoken to me. And she was like, sorry. And I was like, I have not seen a doctor.
Nobody's telling me what's happening.
I was like, I've been told I'm going to be induced. And she was like, what? And I was like, I haven't. And she was like, you haven't seen a doctor. And I was like, no. I was like, I seen a doctor when I got admitted. He never spoke to me. And she was like, okay. The next morning, I was told that I was going. So I was told every night going to bed I was going to be induced the next day, and I was fasted every day.
Sarah,
because they were like, you're going to be induced.
You're going to be induced.
And on the third day, a doctor came and spoke to me, said I was bleeding from my cervix, that my baby was fine, but they couldn't tell why I was bleeding from my cervix, but that I was going to be induced because I was bleeding and I was losing my own blood, that was a risk.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. I was not induced until the 5th day in hospital.
Jesus Christ.
So I sat in hospital for a total of 6 days, 5 nights before I was induced. And I spoke to one doctor, and no other doctor came to speak to me.
So clearly none of this was...
And that was in 2015 in January in the Rotunda Hospital. And I went into... When they induced me, I went into labour so fast because I'd been bleeding.
And nearly just shot out of you.
Yeah, flew out my
like a little rocket.
But this whole thing, my point is that was 2015 and this was 2012.
Yeah, 3 years later.
And all of these things that he said should happen,
they didn't happen.
Don't appear to have happened.
I was like, maybe there's hope. Well, I'm glad you're okay, Lily's okay. It's the most important thing. So in 2017, Arul Kumaran commented that a significant contributing factor to Halappanavar's death was Ireland's restrictive abortion laws.
Yeah.
Now, that gentleman, the lovely conservative groups in Ireland went after him.
Really?
And started saying that he was pro-abortion because he would carry out abortions on women that wanted them and also women that were going to die if they didn't get them. So they were like, this guy's pro-abortion, so his findings are going to be warped. No. He understands, he is a gynecologist and understands that women need help. And help not in the way that Ireland's like, oh, save the babies! Except the ones that are being raped and sold to America. Fuck them. Anyway, in response to the many protests after Savita's death, the Irish government introduced the Protection of Life During Pregnancy Act 2013. Having passed both houses of the Oireachtas in July 2013, it was signed into law on 30th of July by Michael D. Higgins, the President of Ireland. Savita became the face of the Irish abortion referendum in 2018. A mural of Savita's face was painted on the wall beside the Bernard Shaw pub in Portobello, and in weeks leading up to the final vote, messages were affixed to the wall. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
One poignantly read, "Sorry we were too late, but we are here now. We didn't forget you."
Mm.
So Orla O'Connor, co-director of Together for Yes, Together for Yes was the movement to get abortion legalised in Ireland, was in her first year as chief executive of the National Women's Council of Ireland. And she said, Savita's death shifted the whole conversation about abortion. People were so shocked and felt it could have happened to them. We had so many calls to the council from men as well, asking what they could do to campaign for change. So this is from Wikipedia. Verbatim, I just copied this. So on 20th of May 2018, the parents of Halappanavar called for a yes vote in Ireland's referendum on the repeal of the 8th Amendment, with her father saying, "I hope the people of Ireland will vote yes for abortion, for the ladies of Ireland and the people of Ireland. My daughter, she lost her life because of this abortion law, because of the diagnosis, and she could not have an abortion. She died." So on the 25th of May 2018, the people of Ireland voted yes to repeal the 8th Amendment by a margin of 2-1. Savita's father said, "I have no words to express my gratitude to the people of Ireland at this historic moment. We got justice for Savita."